1 million UFO sightings are reported each year. Most can be debunked, but 5% remain unexplained. These are the close encounters. Just across the Canadian border is the Loring Air Force Base. It's the largest strategic air command bomber base in America.
It was the largest in terms of the amount of nuclear weaponry that was kept on that base. And this was during the Cold War, when there was always the danger of nuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union.
For that reason, security is airtight.
Anyone breaking the base perimeter at Loring would be in serious trouble. Even some of the soldiers on the base were not always aware of the nuclear weapons that were hidden on the base.
Just outside the weapons storage area, Staff Sergeant Danny Lewis works the night shift.
Lewis is a member of the security detachment at Loring Air Force Base. He's out doing his job, and he sees some lights in the sky, moving back and forth, maybe beyond the perimeter of the base, but close to the base.
He could not determine exactly what type of aircraft was approaching.
It moves like a helicopter. It goes up and down like a helicopter would. It's moving in the kind of things you'd expect a helicopter to do. It's not really on the base. It's just maneuvering around the base.
And this was of grave concern because no aircraft is supposed to come on the base without authorization.
Tower, this is WSF Patrol, over.
WSF Patrol, Tower, over.
Are you tracking yeah, helicopter, east-northeast, few miles out. WSF Patrol.
Roger that. Just getting it now. East, northeast.
But no tag. Let me get back to you on that, over.
Please identify yourself.
Okay. WSF Patrol, we cannot get a tag on that aircraft.
We have an object now that's approaching a restricted military base that is not replying to contacts that have been made.
Lewis's next move is to communicate with the command post, let them know that there's something going on.
Base Commander, this is WSF Patrol. Tracking a helicopter, east-northeast, few miles out.
Lewis reaches the base commander, who races to the top of the viewing tower.
He's worried about things penetrating his weapon storage facility.
It's on the move, sir.
The object that they're watching circles around the base and then it disappears.
Sergeant Lewis is sent out to investigate.
Tower, this is WSF Patrol, moving.
They rushed all of the K-9 and MPs into the area to inspect everything to make sure that no one had gotten into the base. They could find no indication that anyone on the ground had disturbed the weapons storage site or any other of the facilities.
"24 hours later, the base is still on high alert. And Sergeant Lewis returns to his post at the weapons storage area.
The next night, Lewis is out doing his patrol again.
And just like in the first night, he sees an object approaching the base from the northeast.
But this time, it's moved right over the base itself and is headed straight for the weapons storage facility.
Command Post WSF Patrol.
If it was a helicopter, you'd expect to see light reflecting off the rotor blades. You'd expect to see the navigation lights. You'd hear the noise from the engine. It was quiet.
Command Post to WSF Patrol. Go ahead.
Sir, we have an intruder.
It's within 300 yards of the nuclear weapons storage facility.
You're gonna want to check this out.
They don't know if it has weapons. They don't know its intent.
Command Post WSF Patrol.
An unidentified aircraft moves over a U.S. Air Force base
Sir, we have an intruder.
and is hovering near its nuclear weapons arsenal.
It's now penetrated the Vloring base. Now it's become something much more important than it was.
They don't know if it has weapons. They don't know its intent. Any craft who flies into restricted military airspace is at risk of being shot down.
But that ultimate decision rests with the base commander.
Sir. There.
There are protocols that have to be observed before you can fire upon something. What if it turned out to be a civilian helicopter and they fired at it? There would be all kinds of ramifications. They've lost the sight of the craft. They don't know what happened to it. It disappeared from sight.
Outside the nearby B-52 hangars, Sergeants Eichner and Jones are oblivious to the latest security breach.
Jones, you want to get me to 3/8?
Sure thing. Coming up.
Sergeant Eichner and Sergeant Jones are B-52 mechanics. They're doing their work on the base.
Hey, Eichner, get out here. You're gonna want to check this out.
What is it?
I don't know.
Eichner and Jones, now the fifth and sixth witness in the strange sighting, follow the light as it once again circles the base.
Control tower to base commander. The object is back, sir, near the hangars. Sir, it looks like it may have landed.
The object leads Eichner and Jones to an off-limit restricted area.
You sure about this?
They think, well, maybe we ought to get out of here because we're not supposed to be in this specific area.
Suddenly, they see the object directly in front of them.
Eichner and Jones hear the security police and decide to exit the restricted area as quickly as possible. But right now, the last thing on Lewis's mind is Eichner and Jones.
The lights go out, the object disappears again.
It appears to be heading north, sir. Now it's left our airspace, sir.
The object heads back again towards the northeast, towards the Canadian border. And disappears off radar, very similar to what happened the night before. The MPs continue to search the base to make sure no one has physically landed on the base. This is the one case where the United States government admitted that some unknown aircraft penetrated U.S. nuclear facilities, and they were not able to determine either where they came from or whose aircraft they were.
Immediately after the last event, Loring Air Force Base sends priority messages to the Pentagon, the Air Force Chief of Staff, and Strategic Air Command Headquarters, informing them of the incidents. One message recommends that Northern Tier bases employ a Security Option 3 alert along the U.S.-Canada border. 3 years later, New York journalist Barry Greenwood learns about the incident and makes inquiries using the Freedom of Information Act. The Department of Defense releases documents revealing that 3 days after the event at Loring, a similar object was spotted hovering over a weapons storage area at Wurtsmith Air Force Base, nearly 1,800 kilometers away. Witnesses also report seeing unidentified objects over Air Force bases in Montana, North Dakota, and Ontario.
It was flying straight into the lake.
For Swedish farmer Knut Lindback, Lake Kylmjärv is key to his way of life. He drinks from it, eats from it, and uses it for daily travel.
Knut had a very small farm, very near the shore of Lake Kylmjärv. They raise their own meat and they grow their own vegetables. They were very much living from that.
Knut's boy Bjorn is ready to help with the daily chores.
This was the very first year after the war. People were trying to get back to normality. I went to Luleå in the very north of Sweden to interview Knut Lindback, to listen to him tell me about the story.
World War II may be over, but Swedes are still very wary of any loud explosions overhead.
In 1946, the Soviet Union is bent on world domination. They're attempting to take over many of the countries in Europe. Sweden is worried about what the Soviet Union is going to do.
Knut's farm is less than 500 kilometers from the Russian border. An airstrike is always a possibility.
Sweden has always been a little aware of Russia because of the threat from the east, and Swedes were very much aware of what was flying in the skies. When I interviewed Knut, he told me that he heard a tremendous, strange noise from the heavens. He was looking up at that noise and trying to find out what was coming. Knut Lindback's first thought was that it was a great storm.
But it doesn't look like any storm cloud.
He saw the windows rattling. He looked up into the sky and saw an elongated rocket-like object with two fins pointing out from the sides. Sweden still remembered the war and the V-bombs that Nazi Germany sent over Sweden.
But those rockets were aimed at major cities. Kjolmyr is in the middle of nowhere.
It was flying straight into the lake.
A blast wave causes a violent ripple effect.
Something hit the bottom of the lake and exploded.
In the Swedish countryside, a mysterious object races towards Knut Lindback's farm.
Let's go do it!
Something hit the bottom of the lake and exploded.
The impact triggers a massive ripple effect.
Part of the bottom from this lake was thrown on the shore.
Björn, är du okej? Är du okej?
Knut suspects they've been hit with a V1 bomb.
Knut Lindback, as many other Swedes, knew about the V-bombs from the war.
The V-1 was kind of an airplane with a big rocket pod on the top, and it would fly more or less straight level. It's sort of what we would call a cruise missile today.
But according to Knut, the object didn't look like a V1.
Knut Lindback described to me a very strange formation, really. It was not as you would expect, a pointed nose. It was a stubbed nose on this object.
Knut decides to row out to the point of impact.
Knut told me that he was really startled about this, but he was also curious. He wanted to know what had crashed into the lake.
Given the massive collision, Knut expects to find the waters littered with pieces from the shattered object.
When V-bombs crashed in Sweden, there were 2,000, 3,000 kilos of debris to be found. But there was nothing of that sort. Not a scrap of metal. Nothing.
Since Lake Kjolmyr is only 2 meters deep, Knut checks to see if he can feel any debris below the water.
If you're looking at the bottom of a lake and you see something fall into the lake and it's heavy enough and it's traveling deep enough, it may bury itself in the silt at the bottom of the lake. So you would probe around with an oar, as Knut Lindback did.
But still no trace of the wreckage.
Nothing has recovered from that, so we don't know what fell into that lake.
The mystery extends beyond Lake Kjolmyr.
The crash on July 19th was one of 4 crashes within 5 hours.
Without exception, all of them land in remote lakes.
And that's very strange because Sweden is, as many other countries are, not only lakes, you know. Some of them should have crashed on land.
Där fanns en gentig där.
To me, this is an enigma. This is a puzzle. It doesn't fit with rockets. It doesn't fit with really anything that we could suggest today. The day after the object crashed, the first military was sent to the lake. They searched the lake for 2 weeks and they found nothing.
The Swedish military sends a team of soldiers and engineers to scour Lake Kjolmjärv with electrical probes, mining equipment, metal detectors, and Geiger counters. They collect 35,000 samples, but all are identified as local materials. As many as 30 similar crashes are recorded across Sweden in the summer of 1946. In all cases, no debris is ever recovered. Because they leave no trace behind and are never identified, the Swedish military classify these mysterious objects as ghost rockets. A special ghost rocket committee is set up to study them more closely. While the committee determines that some of these sightings are in fact meteors, others, like the sighting at Lake Kjolmjärv, remain unexplained.